So hip mobility is a limiting factor a lot of times with athletes. Hi, my name is Bill Parisi. I'm the founder of the Parisi Speed School. We started back in 1992. We've been in business. I've been a coach for now 30 plus years. We've trained over 1 million athletes. We put hundreds of guys in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, all different types of pro athletes. But our focus has been the youth and high school athlete. A lot of times our athletes, their feet are not right. They're in shoes all day. Their feet are bound up. It limits the ankle. The talus gets locked up, and you don't have mobility at the ankle joint, specifically the talus, and that causes challenges up the food chain. And that's going to create, when you are sitting in certain positions or you run a certain way and you have faulty mechanics or bad shoes or in shoes all the time. We train our athletes barefoot a lot. We warm up barefoot. We do a lot of things barefoot. A couple of my athletes, I do a whole entire session barefoot, acceleration session, hard training barefoot, ankle training barefoot. Now, that's only advanced athletes, that have a training age with us 5-6 years, that have that kind of training tolerance and that kind of connective tissue buildup. A lot of athletes are limited with hip mobility because, one, their feet are not right, they're in shoes all day, their talus joints locked up for whatever reason. They're sitting all day, they sit a certain way, their foot's turned out a certain way. So these fibroblast cells now are casting webs of collagen either at the ankle joint, at the hip joint, and we're kind of slowly locking that joint into a position that causes the foot to slightly external rotate. That you don't even really notice unless you slow it down on high-speed camera. And you notice you got a little slight turn, and that's because something's locked down, whether it be the ankle or the hip or something with the back. Something's locked down from the collagenous tissue being woven because we're sitting a certain way. We know, hey, if we sit in a car all day, we're gonna be stiff. Well, if we sit with our foot externally rotated all day, the body says, okay, I guess we need to stay here to be safe. So it sends fibroblast cells to cast webs. It's like a spider to lock that hip down slightly to the externally rotated, and now you get a little bit of shift, the hip movement, or the hip is locked up, and now that continues, and now you get faulty movement. It changes the tensegrity model. You're not optimizing free energy, and now they got to pull that stretch from somewhere else in the body. Now that, like I said, tensegrity. Now the hip is tight, and now it's causing a stress somewhere else. We'll have to give up somewhere else in the body, and that's where injuries occur somewhere else other than the body. So a tight hip, an ankle out of alignment can cause issues throughout the body. That's why a good therapist will assess not only an area that's injured, but where's that injury coming from? Most likely somewhere else in the body. Not all the time, but a good therapist is not going to look at that injury point, but it's going to look at the other ends of the spectrum. Every exercise is an assessment tool. So we talk a lot about, assessments, overhead squat assessments, all these different assessments. You should be assessing everything. So hip mobility is a limiting factor a lot of times with athletes. So we're going to do things such as hip circles. We're going to get the ankle right. We're going to bring a therapist involved. But I think the big thing with an athlete improving hip mobility is, one, really warming the hips up, like really focusing on warming the hips up. And we do that through hip airplanes. We do that through a series of bird dog drills. We're on all fours and we're doing hip mobility circuits. We're standing, we're doing hip mobility. But we also want to bring blood flow to that hip, and we'll do that through, abduction activity, resisted with mini bands. So we want to get that hip fired up, and balance activities. So when we do these things and then go through ranges of motion and stretching hip flexors, because that's a limiting factor too. A lot of athletes have tight hip flexors. We're going to get those muscles warm. We're going to open them up. We're going to stretch them, and we're also going to get therapy. We're going to get pressure in areas around the hip, around the low back, around the core. We're going to address these trigger points. We're going to address areas of the body that's going to allow the hip to open up.